What do you say to people who support the right to own arms, that this is the camel's nose under the tent, and the next thing you'll be after concealed carry weapons, you'll be after other kinds of gun rights?
Well, that's just not true. It wasn't true with the prior bill that was the law for 10 years. And I just think, candidly, that dog doesn't hunt.
Why shouldn't it be true? Why wouldn't you want to go after those other laws?
Because that's not what I've done in the past, and it's not what I'm doing right now.
If I could have gotten 51 votes in the Senate of the United States for an outright ban, picking up every one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in, I would have done it. I could not do that. The votes weren't here.
The term, the right of the people, when the framers included it in the Bill of Rights, they used it as a term of art. That same phrase, the right of the people, is found in the First Amendment, the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition their government for redress of grievances. It's also found in the Fourth Amendment, the right of the people to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. And the question that I would pose to the senior senator from California is, would she deem it consistent with the Bill of Rights for Congress to engage in the same endeavor that we are contemplating doing with the Second Amendment in the context of the First or Fourth Amendment? Namely, would she consider it constitutional for Congress to specify that the First Amendment shall apply only to the following books and shall not apply to the books that Congress has deemed outside the protection of the Bill of Rights? Likewise, would she think that the Fourth Amendment's protection against searches and seizures could properly apply only to the following specified individuals and not to the individuals that Congress has deemed outside the protection of the Bill of Rights?
Senator, yield for a question.
Let me just make a couple of points in response. One, I'm not a sixth grader. Senator, I've been on this committee for 20 years. I was a mayor for 9 years. I walked in, I saw people shot. I've looked at bodies that have been shot with these weapons. I've seen the bullets that implode. In Sandy Hook, youngsters were dismembered. Look, there are other weapons. I've been I'm not a lawyer, but after 20 years, I've been up close and personal to the Constitution. I have great respect for it. This doesn't mean that weapons of war, and the Heller decision clearly points out 3 exceptions, 2 of which are pertinent here. And so you know, I mean, it's fine you want to lecture me on the Constitution. I appreciate it. Just know I've been here for a long time. I've passed on a number of bills. I've studied the Constitution myself. I am reasonably well educated, and I thank you for the lecture. Incidentally, this does not prohibit, you use the word prohibit, it exempts 2,271 weapons. Isn't that enough for the people in the United States?
Mr.
Do
Chairman,
they need a bazooka? Do they need other high-powered weapons that military people use to kill in close combat? I don't think so. So I come from a different place than you do. I respect your views. I ask you to respect my views.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Durbin, it's not. Mr. Chairman, I can't add anything to that.
Okay. Senator Cruz.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask yet another question of the senior senator of California. I think nobody doubts her sincerity or her passion. And yet at the same time, I would note that she chose not to answer the question that I asked, which is, in her judgment, would it be consistent with the Constitution for Congress to specify which books are permitted and which books are not, and to use the specific number?
The answer is obvious, no.
And if I may ask...
Could we keep on the... And I appreciate we have a discussion on books. I know that they have that in your state of Texas, where your educational boards tell people what books they should or should not read in their schools, something that we would not do in Vermont, but, you know, we're not going to talk about your right.
Well, yeah.
But let's stick to guns. And I know Senator...
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your acknowledging that the state of Texas allows books.
America is represented by the distinction of this great court. And now, I want to ask you something about the 14th Amendment, and if both of you could respond to it. It's simple. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Is a woman included within that definition?
Yeah. A woman's a person. I think that's well established.
Yeah, the issue is not whether a woman's a person. The issue is what the issue is what constitutes equal protection.
Yes, all right. Are women included?
Yeah.
Of course they're included.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you.
But does equal protection mean that you have to have unisex toilets? I mean, that's the kind of question you have to get into.
This is your quote, Mr. Justice, in California. Certainly, the Constitution does not require discrimination on the basis of sex. The only issue is whether it prohibits it. It doesn't. Nobody ever thought that's what it meant. Nobody ever voted for that. If the current society wants to outlaw discrimination by sex, hey, we have things called legislatures, and they enact things called laws. So why doesn't the 14th Amendment then cover women?
The 14th Amendment, Senator, does not apply to private discrimination. I was speaking of Title VII and laws that prohibit private discrimination. The 14th Amendment says nothing about private discrimination, only discrimination by government.
Yes.
So, I see what you meant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Both Justice Scalia and Justice Stevens wrote excellent opinions in that case. I am not here, though, to grade my boss's work. That would be kind of impertinent of me, I suspect. And certainly, I'm sure they would think so. I also worry that saying I agree with one or the other will indicate to clients or to litigants in future cases, because it's now a precedent in the United States Supreme Court. It's binding. It's the law. Whether we like it or not, it's the law. And if I start saying I like one opinion or I like the other opinion,
all right,
I'm signaling.
I'll let you off the hook.
Oh.
Let me go to another one.
Thank you, Senator.
In D.C. v. Heller, the majority opinion written by Justice Scalia recognized that, and I'm quoting, "Of course the Second Amendment was not unlimited," end quote. Justice Scalia wrote, for example, laws restricting access to guns by the mentally ill or laws forbidding gun possession in schools were consistent with the limited nature of the Second Amendment. Justice Scalia also wrote that, quote, weapons that are most useful in military service, M16 rifles and the like, may be banned, end quote, without infringing on the Second Amendment. Do you agree with that statement, that under the Second Amendment, weapons that are most useful in military service, M16 rifles and the like, may be banned?
Senator, Heller makes clear the standard that we judges are supposed to apply. The question is whether it's a gun in common use for self-defense, and that may be subject to reasonable regulation. That's the test, as I understand it. There's lots of ongoing litigation about which weapons qualify under those standards, and I can't prejudge that litigation.
No, I'm just asking you, do you agree with his statement? Yes or no?
Are the statements out of the Heller decision from the United States?
Justice Scalia's statement.
Well, whatever's in Heller is the law, and I follow the law. Well, it's not a matter of agreeing or disagreeing, Senator, respectfully. It's a matter of it being the law. And my job is to apply and enforce the law.
It's very hard for me to believe that he felt so sanctimonious about having to come forward. And well, let me just say, this was an historic election. This was the first woman. She was very qualified, 8 years a United States Senator, First Lady, Secretary of State, did a good job, prepared herself, went out. She won the popular vote by 3 million votes. She lost the electoral vote narrowly, and everybody that knows her And I think her pollsters among them believe that this played a role.
Do you have confidence in Director Comey staying at the FBI? Should he?
Well, I have confidence in him as a director. I think he is straightforward. I just don't understand why there must have been some pressures on him that I don't know about.
Many of his colleagues, of my colleagues, on the other side of the aisle have praised Judge Gorsuch's qualifications. And there's no question he's well-educated and well-credentialed. But we're not just evaluating a resume. If we were, every Supreme Court nominee would pass unanimously, 100-0. Rather, all of us evaluate not only their education and experience, but also their judicial philosophy, temperament, and views on important legal issues. We do this because if confirmed, a nominee's decisions will affect the lives of all Americans for generations. And as I've said, our job is to assess whether the nominee will protect the legal and constitutional rights of all Americans, and whether the nominee recognizes the humanity and justice required when evaluating the cases before him. Unfortunately, based on Judge Gorsuch's record at the Department of Justice, his tenure on the bench, his appearance before the Senate, and his written questions for the record, I cannot support this nomination. Thank you very much. Time has come, America, to step up and ban these weapons. The other very important part of this bill is to ban large-capacity ammunition feeding devices, those that hold over 10 rounds. We have federal regulations and state laws that prohibit hunting ducks with more than 3 rounds, and yet it's legal to hunt humans with 15-round, 30-round, even 150-round magazines.
I've watched these votes, and I must say I view them with substantial dismay at the lack of courage in this House. Courage to stand up and say we've had enough of these killings. We've had enough of the development of highly militarized kinds of weapons.
It's not in order.
Senator from California.
We have had enough of the development of highly militarized weapons, easy to shoot, big clips, 100+ bullets in each, large velocity guns falling into the hands of grievance killers, juveniles, people mentally disturbed. There will be no background checks, apparently, and we have a proliferation of these weapons. I have a hard time understanding it. We're here on 6-year terms for a reason, to take votes on difficult issues. Everything needs 60 votes today. This is supposed to be a majority body. We have crafted an assault weapons bill to really represent the people of America. Every single poll has shown support.
Senator's time has expired.
Let me just end. I know how this is going to end, and the despair and the dismay of families standing out there whose safety we need to protect, and we don't do it.
Weighed in on Sally Yates' decision to not support the Trump executive order on travel restrictions, and here's how she described it in the context of the future of Jeff Sessions.
Yesterday, early in the evening, we clearly saw what a truly independent Attorney General does. That statement took a steel spine to stand up and say no. That is what an Attorney General must be willing and able to do. I have no confidence that Senator Sessions will do that.